What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel, and well, today's video is going to be something different. We are going to be discussing the do's and don'ts of the Assassin's Creed franchise and basically the 10 commandments that the dev team will have to adhere to when making the next AC game. Now guys and girls, this is coming straight from the GDC Vault, which is 10 years evolution of Assassin's Creed the franchise, so it's about an hour long. If you want to go watch it, check it out in the description down below. Now this pile of news and informational stuff comes straight from Reddit from user Volkung Adion, so go check out the original in the comment section down below as well. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So he starts off by saying there's a little bit of context first. In the GDC of 2018, creative director Jean Guesson talked about the Assassin's Creed franchise for its 10th anniversary. Very insightful talk, and again in the description down below. Now in this conference, it is revealed how of course AC1 was developed as a next-gen Prince of Persia game and was intended to reinvent the action-adventure genre. Then they developed AC2, keeping the strengths of the first game, narrative and assassin fantasy, and kept improving upon the criticized aspects, of course, the repetitive nature of the missions and certain environments. Anyways, in order to achieve this, multiple development teams had to work together, which could cause narrative and gameplay inconsistencies. So to clarify fundamentals, in 2010, the 10 commandments were created as basic rules, sort of like a Bible that future dev teams had to respect in order to keep consistency. Now the first one was that Assassin's Creed will always tell the story of the secret war between assassins and Templars. Now going back throughout all of the Assassin's Creed games, we can confirm and of course admit, even in Odyssey, that this is the point of the entire games. Yes, there's a certain background and certain story elements that differ between each game, of course, to make it a bit more unique, but the Assassin versus Templar storyline is always there and always played out throughout the franchise, whether in the modern day or the historical elements within the games. Whether they're the Cult of Cosmos versus the Hidden Ones or Assassins versus Templars, they have always been in the games, something of course that should always be in a game titled Assassin's Creed. And number 2 is being an assassin doesn't make the main character a ruthless killer. He kills, but he has principles and never murders innocent. He avoids collateral damage as much as possible, and all I can say is that this completely ruins the momentum of Valhalla and Odyssey. Momentum, is that the right word? Yeah, we'll go with that word, because obviously in Valhalla you're a ruthless murderous Viking going around murdering and pillaging whenever you want, and in Odyssey you're a merciless Spartan killer. The second commandment that most devs should go by when creating an Assassin's Creed game. This is all coming from the creative director, by the way, of Assassin's Creed, or one of the Assassin's Creed games, so don't hate me for this, but it's something that should also be implemented in next games. Okay, the assassins do have principles, that's why they have the creeds and the tenets of the creed. So maybe in the next games Ubisoft should focus more on the fundamentals of being an assassin rather than having a massive bloodbath. Now the war between assassins and Templars is the foundation of the franchise story in the past and the present, something I already talked about in the first point. And number 4 is that the assassin should always be agile, socially skilled, unbeatable with a blade, and a stylish badass. Now of course, agile, yes, they can still all do parkour and move really quickly and do cool finishes, so cool. Socially skilled, we've just got that back in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, although it's not used as well as I thought it could be used in the game. Odyssey didn't have nothing like that, so I'm glad they're moving forward with more the classic Assassin's Creed points. And unbeatable with a blade, yes, that's always going to be a point in Assassin's Creed. Now with the more hack and slash type combat system, of course it's a bit more difficult. With the previous games we had the counter system, so of course you're going to be unbeatable no matter the situation, even against a heavy brute. But now with the abilities, which we should get rid of because there should be no special abilities, what's the point of Assassin's Creed? We are unbeatable with a blade. Now at number 5, they say pivotal moments in human history are the basis for the franchise. Assassin's Creed will always take a revisionist approach on real events, and they'll use historical gaps to create their story, which they've done throughout all of their games. Assassin's Creed is known for the historical aspect mainly more than the actual assassin story. The whole storyline sets out in a separate environments. From of course Saxon, Anglo-Saxon England, Viking England, Norway in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, to ancient Greece in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, ancient Egypt in Assassin's Creed Origins, Renaissance Italy in Assassin's Creed 2 Brotherhood, and then Constantinople, France, Paris. The Assassin's Creed franchise is known for taking elements of history and implementing them into their games, or just more or less likely setting their story within the world of historical elements, which has always been a pull from many fans of the franchise. Because, and I know this might sound stupid, but in all honesty, you are more or less likely going to learn something about a historical period from an Assassin's Creed game more than any other game throughout history, really. Assassin's Creed is known for telling historical elements, and of course with the AC Discovery mode, letting players actually explore the open world in a way that could be like a museum museum tour just implements that even more and expands upon it to something that's a lot greater than most game experiences. Number 6, they go on to say more about the history should always be portrayed as relevant to our core audience, with facts that tie into the present day common knowledge and edgy modern art direction, of course, something I just talked about. Number 7 is Assassin's Creed is based on technology. Nothing is magical. Everything has a plausible technological explanation. And while this has been deterred more in the recent games, especially Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, well, especially Odyssey, but more or less coming back to terms with this fact in Valhalla, Assassin's Creed, the mystical elements, we can call them, they've always been based on technology. The Isu, the Apple of Edens, the Eden weapons, they're based on technology created years and years and years and years ago by the ones who came before. And we're even using technology to get into these minds of these historical characters. So whenever you play an Assassin's Creed game, it should always be explained that this is technology, not mysticism, not magic, and it should always be able to be explained in that way. So I think I really want them to push on more with in the DLC. I don't know how they're going to do it with Wrath of the Druids because that seems very magical and mystical, but hopefully in the future we will have more and more content like this. Number 8, it says Assassin's Creed is about digging into a character's past through their DNA in order to understand what really happened in key historical moments. Again, we've talked about this before. Assassin's Creed is all about going into the Animus, reliving your ancestors' memories. Now, of course, it's changed. You can relive anyone's memories if you have their DNA, which of course is something that should have always been pushed into the franchise more. That seems to be where it was progressing from the first games up until, of course, now Valhalla. So it's quite unique and it's really cool to see where it will go in the future. And at number 10, Assassin's Creed can bend historical accuracy but cannot create a Uchronia. Now, this is something that's kind of pushed back now in the, probably more in the future games, because as you know, Assassin's Creed does bend it a little bit. You know, these different events, these different timelines, different periods, different things that happen throughout the historical moments in Assassin's Creed games, of course, are twisted in a way to make it seem a bit more accessible and a bit more exciting. But now with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the ending, I'm not going to say much about it, but with the ending, it seems to be more or less likely that we will be experiencing some different historical moments and different possibilities throughout all of time that have not actually happened. Don't want to talk much about it, but this is something that we really should think upon and really decide what's best for the franchise. Now, of course, we have to go into some things that really can't change from the IP. Like, these are things that throughout all of the franchise have to stay the same and they have to be consistent with the game. And if they're not present in the games, then it shifts to something that is not Assassin's Creed. So in general, historical places and events, these give a new explanation for historical facts and events. This brings historical lessons to the player in a way that's relevant to a modern person. The main character's silhouette or posture, the static glimpse and limbo elements, the present conspiracy, what are the Templars planning throughout the modern day and why are they looking for clues in the ancestor's life. Now, for the games, of course, the player fantasy of being an assassin, the animation quality, the living world, the big scales, the living crowd, sense of freedom, excludes obviously handheld and Wii because they don't want a lesser experience of the concept. Bearing in mind, I know it says Wii, this came out a few years ago. Now, of course, they want a complementary experience that expands the universe, and the game design could be totally different. Now, what will be changed and what will always progress through the games is, of course, the time periods, the creative team support, the past main character, present day locations, secondary characters, and of course the Animus, which we know has been upgraded and compiled into more. Now, as long as you are discovering and delivering on this purpose, Ubisoft should always go by these fundamentals. Now, personally, I think Ubisoft is too funnel right now because they're trying to reach a bigger audience in each game that they've dropped most of these mentioned premises. Rules that made the OG games so beloved and the franchise and identity. It really does go to show that how much Ubisoft really wanted to keep these implemented designs and elements in the games, and they wanted to make it and progress it further. And honestly, it just goes to show just how much meddling came from the higher ups in Ubisoft. It was obviously these guys that were pushing the elements of RPG, trying to get them pushed more into the game to try and make it sell more. They saw how well RPGs were doing and wanted to make more money and capitalize on that. But now we've got to a point in the games where it doesn't feel like an Assassin's Creed game. It just feels like a Viking adventure set within the Assassin's Creed world, or a Spartan adventure set in Assassin's Creed world. It should be an Assassin's Creed game set in the real world. Guys and girls, this is something to think upon, and I want you to let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. If you like this video, click the like button down below, and of course remember to subscribe for some more Assassin's Creed content. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.